Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar regarding the tax and regulatory concessions provided to foreign universities to operate in the GIFT City in India. We see the GIFT City as a great low tax and low regulatory option for Australian universities looking to establish operations in India. I am Stephen O'Flynn, a tax director with SW, and I will be moderating today's session. It is great to have so many of you on the line today. Firstly, I acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Our speaker today is Saurrav Sood, Practice Leader of SW India. We're also very privileged to have three panellists. Dipesh Shah, Executive Director of IFSCA. Dipesh has over 20 years of professional experience in international business, project development, corporate affairs, corporate law and policy matters. His most prominent achievement includes setting up and operationalizing India's first smart city and the International Financial Services Centre. Mr. Sandip Shah, Head of IFSC Department at Gujarat International Finance Tech City Company Limited, the GIFT City. GIFT City is developing an international financial services hub in Gandhinanga, Gujarat. Mr. Shah has over 12 years of professional experience in project development, policy matters, international financial services regulations and securities market. We're very privileged to have two such senior people coming from the Indian government to present on this topic today, or to be panelists today. And finally, our third panelist is Mr. Atul Puri, who is a managing partner and co-founder of SW India. Welcome to Dipesh, Sandip and Atul. Before we start, I'd like to run through some housekeeping. Whilst we are presenting, you can raise questions throughout the Q&A function. The Q&A button can be found at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to send any questions that you have throughout the session using this function. We'll endeavour to answer your questions throughout the presentation and, if time permits, at the conclusion of the seminar. We'll also circulate the slides to everyone who attends after the webinar concludes. Also, today's session is being recorded because we are aware that there's a few people involved in the international areas of universities who are looking to get to India, but were not able to attend today's session, but found the topic very valuable. So we're recording today for distribution later. So if anyone in your organisation would like a copy, please let us know. Now I'd like to introduce you to Saurrav Sood. Saurrav leads the international tax and transfer pricing practice at SW India. He has also assisted a number of Australian universities comply with their India equalisation levy requirements. Now I'll hand over to Saurrav.
Thank you, Stephen. From this point, I'll just take it forward. So I think thanks for the introduction though, but I think with this topic, as I proceed, you will find that international tax and transfer pricing hardly has a role to play. The regulations have been drafted in a way that they are more incentivized and less tax paid. So as Stephen mentioned in today's webinar, we'll be taking up the recent regulation brought in under IFSC GIFT City, which are relevant for the foreign universities who are wanting to set up their campus or center in India. These regulations were introduced in October 22. We thought it will be relevant to hold this webinar to discuss about these regulations and opportunities that can be explored through it. In today's session, we will be discussing about the IFSC regulations and the educational activities that have been allowed under these new regulations, and also about the GIFT City in Gujarat. Just to mention, throughout this session, you will hear me using IFSC and GIFT City acronyms. To give the full form at the start itself, IFSC stands for International Financial Services Centre and GIFT stands for Gujarat International Financial Tech City. In both of these, IFSC is the regulatory body and GIFT is the infrastructure that has been created where centers are being operated inside. Luckily, as Stephen mentioned, we have the senior most officials from both the bodies with us today as panelists. So it will be definitely an interactive session we have tried to keep so that the audiences are enlightened with it. So broadly, these are the topics that we'll be covering, which you are seeing on the screen, and we'll just start with the topic first. So education sector, I'll just give a brief snapshot about the education sector in India. There are certain facts about the Indian education sector. You will see that the government of India has been active in this space with spree of changes it has brought in the educational policies to attract more foreign universities in India, either directly or through collaborations. There's also been a lot of growth and movement in the tech space wherein startups have grown with a lot of foreign investment in them. So if you see that there has been a national education policy, there has been collaboration agreements which have been approved by the government of India. So all these things actually add to the intentions that the government is working towards to attract the foreign universities over here. Moving on to next slide. This is a snapshot of the investments that the education sector has seen in India. So India has been one of the key markets wherein there have been growth of lot many unicorns. Even education sector has seen some of the startups grown up to be unicorns. Majority of these startups have been in the online education space as their service offerings. So I think if you see the names of the unicorns, Byju's, Unacademy, Upgrade, Erudus, they're all in the tech space of the education sector, and they have grown with the existing market scenario. That is the opportunity and size that we are actually looking at vis-a-vis India. Now, with this, I'll just move on to the GIFT City first. What exactly is GIFT? And I'll try to keep this session interactive so that everybody is able to understand instead of me just playing the presentation. And that will be, I think, an approach we have tried to follow. So with this background, we come to the main topic of today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier about GIFT City, these are certain facts about it which we have captured in the slide. To understand more, let me put my first question to Mr. Sandip Shah to help us understand more about the GIFT City. Sandeep ji, if you can please tell us some facts about the GIFT Cities in relation to the infrastructure that universities can expect therein.
Sure. Thank you. And at the outset, I would like to congratulate SW India for organizing this webinar and bringing the right kind of participants to understand the new opportunities in India for the foreign universities. As you rightly mentioned, it's very important for everybody to know what is GIFT City and what we are doing right now in terms of the overall development. So more from the infrastructure perspective, GIFT City is basically a greenfield smart city project, and it's being developed closer to the Ahmedabad international and domestic airport, and it's much closer to the Gandhinagar, which is the state capital. So it's very well kind of located, between the Ahmedabad, which is the commercial city of the Gujarat, and the Gandhinagar, which is the state capital. The idea is to develop GIFT City as the global financial and IT services hub, and that's how, if you look at the infrastructure facilities, the regulations and tax regime, and the other incentives have been aligned in such a way that it attracts the right kind of financial and IT services companies in the zone. If we talk about the overall development that has happened, so GIFT City has basically, it's 1,000-acre land under which the entire city is being developed, and technically it's divided into two parts. So the one part is the domestic zone, which does not have any special regulations or tax incentives. However, state government provides various incentives even in the domestic zone where they can attract the IT companies and the financial services companies to operate. And the second part of the zone is the international zone, where Mr. Dipesh Shah will discuss more in detail about the activities being undertaken in the IFSC zone. But overall, in terms of the development, the important point here is the development is integrated city development, which means the focus is not only to develop commercial buildings, but idea is to also develop residential and social facilities within the 1,000-acre of land. And I'm happy to share that close to 20 million square feet of space has already been allocated, and the social facilities like the school is already functional. There is a business club with sports facilities. There is a 5-star hotel. There are studio apartments. So many such facilities which are generally required for an occupant to work and stay have already been developed in the city. The another very important aspect, again more from the education institutions perspective, surrounding GIFT City, government of Gujarat has developed knowledge corridor, and that is something it's really interesting. Where more than 8 to 9 well-recognized academic institutions are housed basically in next to GIFT City, and many of these institutions are national-level institutions. So the required ecosystem in terms of the academics as well as for students to stay have already been created, with this knowledge corridor. And the institutions like IIT Gandhinagar is just 3 kilometers from here, the National Institute of Design, National Institute of Fashion Technology. So many such recognized institutions have already been established within the 3 to 4 kilometers of GIFT City. So I think while the financial and IT services companies are gaining the momentum, in terms of their business operations here, the surrounding ecosystem and overall infrastructure will play a very important role to attract the foreign universities to set up their campus here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, just a follow-up question to what you have just highlighted. So while I understand the infrastructure has been created, it is in place. There are ecosystem around the GIFT City to attract the foreign universities to make it more viable. Are there any specific state incentives or the central government incentives that the GIFT City is offering when it comes to the universities, if they want to start operating from there, like any capital import exceptions or any of these duty drawback that are being offered right now?
So the good part is now the foreign universities have been included as a part of the IFSC regime, and so the tax incentives applicable to any IFSC unit would also be applicable to the foreign universities when they are established. More from the state government perspective, so state government has come out with very attractive ITS incentive policy. Uh, while it may not be directly helping the foreign universities to attract to get such incentives, but with these incentives, the GIFT City would be able to attract large number of IT and ITS companies. Basically, the reason is the incentives are in the nature of capital expenditure, operating expenditure incentives. They also provide incentives in terms of availing the training. So there is a specific incentives where a student can undergo training, and the training cost will be reimbursed by government of Gujarat as per the specified limit. So I think those incentives will help in terms of creating the right ecosystem for the large companies, IT companies or financial companies to operate. And that's where universities will be able to connect with those companies in terms of the employment opportunities that they will get. The second, more from the central government, I think the Dipesh sir will also discuss about the tax incentives from the IFSC, but more from the indirect tax benefits as well. When foreign universities established, so whatever goods that they will procure in the SEZ, they will also enjoy the custom duty benefits. So that is another important incentives that university will directly enjoy when they set up in the IFSC zone.
I think we'll just deal with now IFSC as a concept so that we are able to understand what exactly it is. So IFSC is an approved, regulated by the Government of India under the Special Economic Zones Act 2005. It is a unit. It is a unit in GIFT City, which is treated as a non-resident under the exchange control regulations. And IFSC in GIFT is a notified zone subject to special economic zone benefit. So if you see the boxes that we have created, these are some of the incentives that are available to IFSC units that are being operated under GIFT City, where you can see the MAT rate, there you can see the tax exemption, the GST and the state subsidies. So with this, I just put one question across just to maybe I think Atul can elaborate a bit about the tax incentives that we have just highlighted over there. So what exactly are the universities looking at in terms of tax incentives, including the exchange control regulation that have been eased out specifically for the foreign universities, please?
Yeah, so thanks, Saurabh. So when we talk about IFSC, it's a specific zone which has been created for the foreign universities or foreign business entities, BFSI sector specifically, where the tax benefits are available to them. When we talk about the income tax, to be specific, so there is a tax holiday of 10 consecutive years given over a period of 15 years from the date of commissioning or the date of license, whichever is granted to the university. So from the income tax perspective, there is a 10-year tax holiday. It has to be consecutive 10 years. So you cannot have a broken period in between those 10 years. Coming to the goods and service tax. So this any university which operates from within the IFSC will be eligible to the exemption from GST, both on the outward supplies as well as inward utilization of any goods and services. So any kind of services which they avail from their vendors will also be subject to exemption from GST on both on goods and services. And the fee which they are going to charge from the students will also not be subject to GST within the IFSC zone. In addition to that, there are multiple state subsidies which are available, which Sandip has already elaborated, with respect to the stamp duty, with respect to the capital subsidy, which the state government is offering to the universities.
Thank you so much. So we'll just move to the next slide from this. So these regulations have come into force from 11th October 2022. And they're applicable on the international branch campuses or the offshore education sector centers that are proposed to be opened up under the IFSC regulations. With this background, if you see, there are courses that have been mentioned in the boxes, which are the proposed courses that will be given priority in terms of the foreign universities. With this background, let me just bring in Dipesh sir to this question answer, sir. Sir, if you can help us understand the larger objective that the government of India had in mind while formulating these regulations for inviting foreign educational players to India, sir, so that at least the audience can appreciate what has been there in the mind while these regulations were drafted.
Okay. So in terms of the International Financial Services Center, the concept is quite simple. What has been done is an area has been carved out within India as an offshore center. Now, the important reason of doing this is that the whole of India today don't have a full capital account convertibility. And thereby a zone within India has been carved out as an offshore zone. Now, from a foreign exchange management regulation, as you just mentioned in your slide, from a foreign exchange perspective, this is an offshore zone. So any entity coming here would be able to deal freely in foreign currency, which is, I think, one of the major advantage of operating in an international financial center, because your dealing currency is foreign currency and you are not bound by the local currency restrictions and the requirements which otherwise are imposed in order to safeguard the domestic economy. Whereas the financial center is considered as an offshore, which is outside India, and thereby it is able to align itself with the international best practices. And having this financial center, the main objective is, how do we onshore the offshore financial services? Now, you are aware that as India is one of the largest consuming of financial services globally, it was not able to provide international financial services much more efficiently onshore India. Thereby, this financial services were being availed from the centers outside, say for example, Singapore, Dubai, Mauritius, centers surrounding outside India, develop products and developed structures to enable India-centric products to be more efficiently delivered from those financial centers. With International Financial Services Center being made operational by the Government of India, the objective is very clear that how do I participate in the international financial services opportunities. So what has been done is in 2015, the International Financial Services Center got operationalized in India. 2016, government brought in a tax parity required for the financial center, because all the financial centers globally operate in a very tax efficient structure. And then it had issued the business regulations for various verticals. So whether it is banking, insurance, capital market, asset management, in order to enable the whole ecosystem, the business regulations were enabled through the domestic regulators. That time we had the domestic regulators in the form of Security and Exchange Board of India, the Reserve Bank of India, a central bank, insurance regulation, and the pension regulator. However, in order to make the IFFC a success in line with the international best practices, in 2019 December, government passed an International Financial Services Center Authority Act to an act of parliament, which has then paved the way for notifying in first time in India a unified financial regulator for the International Financial Services Center. Now, for the IFFC, as you said in the initial terminology, the International Financial Services Center Authority is now made as a unified regulator of the IFFC zone. What does it mean? It means that any institutions coming into this zone will be under a single window approval of the International Financial Services Center Authority, and thereby would not be required to go to the various multiple regulators which are otherwise applicable for the domestic operations when you want to do a domestic business in India. I think this is an important change which the government of India has brought in. And with this change, we believe that the ease of doing international financial services and the corresponding activities has really scaled up in the IFFC zone. So if I can give you a quick numbers as to where does the International Financial Services Center stand today, we are close to 390 plus firms authorized under the International Financial Services Center. And we have more than 5,000 people working in the IFFC zone currently. Overall, GIFT City, as Sandip ji was just mentioning, it has a larger ecosystem with more than 18,000 people working now, including 5,000 in the IFFC zone. Now, from a perspective of having a foreign university or an international branch campus, the thinking which was articulated by the Honorable Finance Minister in the Union Budget, which was in the February 2022, was very clear that we want to bring in a talent and skill available for various sectors in terms of financial management, fintech, or stamp asset sector, which will not only facilitate the financial trade business in the International Financial Services Center zone, but will also become a talent pool for the entire South Asian region going forward. And thereby, this provides a great enabler for the foreign universities to now look into how do they set up and operationalize in the International Financial Services Center zone.
Right, sir. So I think with this, is it right to understand then that once an approval by the IFSC authority is given, the UGC regulations will have no interplay in this at all? They will be like totally out of purview of any of the UGC regulations, and they'll be able to operate under their own curriculum?
Yes, so what has been mentioned in the Union Budget clearly spelled out is that the international branch campus or the foreign university in the IFFC zone will be free from all the domestic law, except those framed by the IFFC authority. So which means that once an international branch campus and post that, what government did was they notified foreign education as a financial service by the notification of the government of India, and thereby it has been brought under the IFFC authority. Now with this important change, we can say that this will help the foreign university to come in the IFFC as an international branch campus in the regulation and framework which has been issued. And a notification has already been laid down in the parliament, which is under section 31 of the IFFC Authority Act, which will disapply the domestic UGC and AICT framework for the IFFC branch campuses, because they are more operating as an offshore branch.
So just for the audience understanding, UGC and AICT are the regulatory body for the higher education sector in India. So I'll just move to the next slide from this part. Now these are something about the key highlights about the IFSC regulations, where as Dipesh rightly said, transactions can be undertaken in the freely convertible foreign currency. The records and documents are certain requirements which needs to be maintained as per the IFSC authority, which they will specify. There will be certain requirements to comply with the details that will be required to be submitted to the IFSC authorities. Having said that, we just move to the next slide to put across the eligibility criteria. Now, when about the IFSC regulations. Now, when I see this slide, there are activities which are permissible, and then if you see at the bottom of the chart, the pictorial diagram that we have drawn, there are certain non-permissible activities. Now, when I see the non-permissible activities, it has to be understood that these activities are basically activities which are not being allowed by the foreign university while they're operating in the gift city. Now, Dipesh ji, if we understand that foreign universities have been specifically restricted from performing any marketing activities while operating there, taking this understanding forward, can you please provide us the rationale for this restriction? Because as I understand, it is the foreign universities, those will be attracting the students in this IFSC center. So how will they be practically marketing themselves when it comes to their offshore branch or offshore campuses? So are there any permissible steps, or there's a blanket no to it?
No, I think let me clarify what has been mentioned in the section 10 of the regulation and subsection 7 of that is that you can undertake the marketing communication activities for your international branch campus, which you are setting up in IFFC, which is clearly permitted. What it is trying to bring out is that the international branch campus is not like a representative office of the parent in the IFFC zone, and thereby it cannot act for marketing and telling students for enrolling them for their parent campus outside India. That they can do from their parent campus or whatever format they are doing. For international branch campus, they are clearly allowed to undertake the marketing and communication activities, which is required for them to get all, whether Indian students, foreign students, that is already permitted.
That means you mean to say that marketing directed towards the offshore branch or campuses is something which is permissible. It is only that they should not act as a representative office for their foreign universities. Right.
Correct.
So I think with this, so if you see the chart of activities that we are trying to capture, so there will be a degree and diploma which will be issued and shall enjoy the same recognition and status as in its home jurisdiction. Modification in the curriculum will need a prior approval of the IFSC authority. The course or program shall be conducted identical in all respects. I think the intention is very clear that they want to create a mirror image of the foreign university while operating in this IFSC center, so that the credibility and the basis of the degree remains the same, and it is same as if they have undertaken these curriculum while being in the home jurisdiction. With this, I think I'll just move to the next slide to understand. So these are certain eligibility criteria that has been put across for the universities to operate as eligible universities under the IFSC center. If you see, they have to be top 500 in the global ranking. They have to be a university of repute. Financial capability needs is also one of the criteria. And then, of course, there has to be suitable infrastructure to operate in these. Now, with this, just one question to the panelists. I think it's Sandip ji, it will be more directed towards you maybe. So while there are certain criteria that have been put in place for the universities who will be allowed to set up in GIFT City, does the regulation permit consortia of universities to establish a common presence in GIFT City while delivering the common curriculum? Or is it that each university has to set up its own shop in the IFSC and universities cannot come together to operate as one while granting independent degrees?
I think this is more from the regulation side. Dipesh sir can also add to it. But based on the regulations, the consortia of universities have been permitted basically to set up the campus here. And what has been mentioned is whatever programs that they offer, it should be identical or it should be similar to what they are offering in their parent jurisdiction, basically. So that's how it has been captured in the regulations. Dipesh sir, would you like to add into this? Yeah.
No, I think you are right. The idea is that it's not too hardcore in the regulation, the infrastructure requirements. Whatever the university is considered appropriate in order to get themselves started, the required infrastructure should be in place. so that they are able to operationalize as per the requirements and the standards set by their parent for such branch campuses.
So that means, Dipesh, if it is right to understand, multiple universities can set up one center and then they can do the curriculum delivery over here while being present. But that is, they can, of course, share the pool of infrastructure and operate. And
Yeah,
they don't need to register independently, or is it that they need to register independently, but infrastructure can be shared between them?
See, our thought process is that there would be the international branch campus of the parent, which will set up. Now, every home country or would have its, operating modalities for international branch campuses. That is one. Two, in terms of the IFFC, yes, you are right that it's not like a closed window. It will be an open window for people, universities to participate from different segments to come forward. So you may have a fintech coming forward, then you may have a financial management, someone specialized coming forward. Then you may have universities or campuses from a STEM area coming forward. And then you can have foreign education institutions coming forward for different type of an high-end education or executive education program. So you will have like an on-the-tap type of a availability for people to apply. But initially, you can imagine that you may not have one, multiple player offering the same, say, fintech program, or you may not have a 10 branch campuses offering the same fintech, because you are talking of an international financial services center zone, which is more in a defined environment in which they are operating. So you will have multiple universities offering different skill sets and different degrees as per the requirements and the standards that is being set by their parent.
Thank you, sir. We'll just move to the next slide with this. I think these are the procedures that have been just highlighted over there for setting up an offshore branch or campus in the university. So if you see the 3 bullets, I think it automatically highlights the intention to keep it simple, to keep it swift, and to keep it minimalistic in terms of the steps to be undertaken. And while Dipesh Ji has specifically mentioned that IFSC authority has become the single notified authority for all sort of approvals, I think still I will put one question to Dipesh Ji, sir. With the procedure that have been kept simplistic, can you please enlighten on the expected timelines that we are looking at in terms of obtaining the approval? Are there any specific points that the universities should be aware while they move forward with this regulations in terms of approaching and intending to set up an offshore branch campus? Anything that you want to highlight, sir, in this part?
I think post the issuance of the draft for the international branch campus, and even before that, we had a series of roundtable interactions with universities from UK, US, Australia, and what we saw was tremendous interest, for the participants to come forward, because they've been looking forward for such opportunity for quite some time. Now, from an IFFC perspective, what we've done is that there is a committee which has been constituted, and as an authority, we have constituted that committee, which has been given a mandate to the group company, and they have already constituted an expert committee which knows the subject in and out in terms of the education. So what will happen is this universities or the branch campuses will initially apply to the committee for screening their application, presenting their business case, presenting what they intend to do, and aligning with the overall objective of the IFFC and the regulation. Some guidance will be provided. Post that, they will be able to make an application, formal application, and the committee will make a recommendation to the authority. And on that basis, authority, based on its regulation and based on fulfilling the conditions mentioned in the regulation, would consider giving the license. Now, from the timeline perspective, see, to be honest, each university have its own curve of coming forward. While we've seen a couple of university already, one from Australia, one from UK, ready to come in and make an application as soon as early as January, February. And in the scenario, we expect that if the the first set of the degree programs can start in the next fall of 2023, that will be what we are looking as a IFFC authority and GIFT City as a company together.
So that means, sir, you are saying that the committee has already been formed, the procedures have been set forward, and it is that the assessment and review, once it is done, they will be notified that they are eligible to make an application to set up a presence in the GIFT City, right?
Yes, so this is a committee being constituted by GIFT company. So maybe Sandip can, just put, what has been done by the GIFT company in terms of the committee formation and how it progresses. As an authority, we have given this to the committee to have an initial screening, and they will be recommending to the IFFC authority.
Sandeep ji, yeah, this is what I was about to ask you
Sure.
also. So while Dipesh ji has told us about the steps that needs to be taken by the regulatory body, what is that the universities are looking in terms of the procedures from the GIFT City perspective? If you can highlight those part also.
So basically, so what we have been doing, post these regulations and all, GIFT City and IFSC authority, we are interacting with the potential foreign universities who are looking to set up their branch campus. So with these initial discussions with both GIFT and IFSCA, they will be able to understand the regulations much in better, the ecosystem, the available infrastructure and all. Post which, the first step is basically to make a presentation to the committee formed by GIFT City. So they need to write formally to the GIFT City committee for their intention to set up the branch campus, and then and at an appropriate time they will be invited to make a presentation to the committee. The committee of experts are basically from the academic side, so they have a background with the sound academic experience, and based on the various parameters, including the past experience, the programs that they run in their parent organization, their plans for GIFT City in terms of running the various programs, the kind of curriculum that they will have for GIFT City branch. So all of this will be evaluated basically, and based on which the committee will make a formal recommendation to the regulatory body, which is IFSC authority. And IFSC authority, as you know, in the regulations have clearly defined the requirements for a foreign university for making an application, and based on which IFSC authority will evaluate the application and then will provide the license to set up the branch campus.
Okay. So Sandeep ji, well, I think this is, it seems that it is procedurally well defined, and we are looking at a fast pace of movement in terms of the application being presented, intention being created, and to the approval. I think one question that I missed asking earlier is in terms of, while you have explained us the concept of GIFT City, what exactly it is, what it offers, is there any specific earmarked zone in the GIFT City specifically for the education universities? Or is it going to be like between the financial services and all that they have to operate? Or is there any dedicated area that has been earmarked?
So basically, now it depends on the scale under which the universities are looking to set up the campuses. We understand initially the foreign universities are looking to set up a branch campus with a postgraduate program or the executive education programs, where the requirements may be to the tune of say 50,000 square feet or 60,000 square feet kind of. For such requirements, there are two, three options. One, they can actually have the space within the commercial buildings developed already in the international zone, so they can buy, they can lease the 2 or 3 floors in one of the buildings and create that branch campus. GIFT City has also identified space even for the larger campuses. So if somebody is looking to set up a large campus by providing undergraduate as well as multiple programs, then even the campus can also be provided basically to such universities. And third, and this is again important for everybody to understand, that entire GIFT City is based on the vertical concept. Is the entire development is basically vertical. So if the requirement is big enough where somebody can create say 300,000 square feet or 400,000 square feet, a dedicated building can also be developed by such foreign universities in terms of the vertical campus. And to start with, basically, if say somebody wants to start with 5,000 or 10,000 square feet of space, we'll be happy to facilitate them to get the required space basically as per their requirements to start immediately, say from next year onwards.
Is there any expected lease rentals that the universities like the per square feet lease rental cost which the universities should be aware about so that they can accordingly match their requirement for the space?
Yeah, so based on the current prevailing commercial rates in the GIFT City by the commercial developers, which is around 60 to 65 rupees per square feet per month. I believe this will be around $1 Australian per square feet per month right now, which is prevailing. And this is basically rate for the bare shell unit. The interior cost and all will be incurred by the units as per their requirements. The developers are also open in GIFT City, where they will also help if the requirement is to get the fully furnished space as per your requirement. They can provide those requirements to the developers, and they can also create those fully furnished space. The rental would dip, the cost of the interior will be added either in the rentals, what they will charge, or a one-time payment for the interior cost can also be provided to the developers. So there are ways under which this can be discussed with the developers.
Thank you so much, Sandip ji, for that information. I think, Stephen, while you are very closely interacting with the university people more often than not, so I think I'm sure I've tried to cover the broad spectrum. But if there's anything that you want to ask the Dipesh and Sandip ji, I just leave the floor to you for this point.
So we've had a few questions come through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So I think we still have time if some more questions want to come through. I might start off. There was a question that came through regarding, can foreign institutions start operation with offering their first year in India with an articulation to their parent campus to complete the degree, or would they be required to offer a full degree in GIFT City? I might just hand that question across to Mr. Dipesh Shah.
What I was trying to convey is that from a regulation perspective, what we have done is that this is a branch of their international campus, and the university, whatever the framework in which they want the international branch campus to come in, it will be alignment in terms of the delivery module and what is available in the international campus for them. Now, if they want the program to run on 1 year in the IFFC and 1 year in the international branch campus, they can articulate that. They can give the justification of having this, how this is going to be beneficial to the students, and obviously the committee and the regulator will consider on those basis based on the merits of those proposals.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. I know in some countries there's a limitation on fees that can be charged for degrees. I'm not sure whether in the IFSCA and the GIFT City, is there any limitation if they're running an Australian course in there, where there's a limit on the fees that can be charged?
Yeah, so as far as the IFFC is concerned, because it is outside the domestic law, there are no fee restrictions from that perspective. However, I am sure you are aware that being in university, end of the day, it has to match the demand and supply. It has to be reasonable for the students to come in. Obviously, they will expect that this is being provided onshore in India, and the students would expect that this is, for them, a reasonable way of taking the Australian degree rather than studying in the offshore campuses outside India. So the university should keep that in mind, and we hope that this will be in alignment with the requirements of both ends, university and the students.
Okay, thank you. We had another question that came through. And I think you may have answered the question through the presentation, but it might be worth just repeating. Just to clarify, this might be to Mr. Sandip Shah, regarding which universities are already or in the process of establishing the precinct. I think in the context of the legislation was only passed on the 11th of October this year. It's a pretty short window. You've been talking to people, but have there been, you indicated, has there been one Australian university engaged, or has there been a few engaged already? And has anyone actually put in a formal application yet?
So I think, as you know, we mentioned, we have seen a great interest from Australian, UK, and even US universities, and close to 4 to 5 universities are in a very advanced stage of, making an application as well. It will be difficult to disclose the names at this stage, but I think. It was in a public domain where University of Wollongong had already submitted their letter of intent earlier to set up their branch campus. So we are expecting many such universities to now come forward and make a formal application.
And I think the next question is more of a point of clarification again, and it's regarding how many of these incentives are different from the standard incentives offered in other special economic zones, and how many of these incentives are specific to the IFC and the gift city?
As mentioned, the foreign university licensed in IFSC will enjoy the status of IFSC, which means the benefits or the incentives available to the IFSC units will be applicable to the foreign universities as well. The difference between SEZ and IFSC is in the SEZ across India and other SEZs in India, there is no income tax benefits now. There was a sunset clause post which the income tax benefit is not available. But in the IFSC, the income tax benefit is available under the Section 80LA of the Income Tax Act, which gives the 10 years of income tax holiday to the units established in IFSC, as well as the other indirect tax benefits applicable to in the SEZ in terms of the custom duty benefit and GST benefits. That would also be applicable to the IFSC and the IFSC units. So I think the IFSC is the only location today in the country which enjoys these tax incentives, and the foreign universities would also be able to avail those incentives.
And maybe just to clarify, the IFSC, that there's just one IFSC in India, there's no multiple IFSCs?
That's true. Gift City is the only notified international financial services center by Ministry of Finance, Government of India today in India.
We have one other follow-up question. I must say there's a couple of acronyms in here, and I'm not exactly sure what they all are. But
I'll just wait for you. So I think Dipesh ji, the question is more from the regulatory perspective. So I think you mentioned about the IFSC authorities' power. So what the question that they want to understand is basically, is there any amendments that are required to be undertaken by the Parliament in the UGC or AICTE before they allow the establishment of the offshore branches or campuses in the gift city? Or is it that the IFSC authority has the powers enough to grant such approvals, and the gift city and the foreign universities can set up their campuses over there?
Yeah, I think first and foremost important is this is the decision of the Government of India through an union budget announcement through union budget. It's a decision of the Government of India to set up an international or a foreign university within IFFC free from all domestic law. So which means that the first starting point is the Government of India announcement. Two, there are procedural steps in order to ensure that there is a disapplication of the various domestic law, and section 31 I mentioned in my remarks as an overriding powers under the IFFC Act that it can disapply any rules, regulations and act in the domestic India for the IFFC zone. So what is being done is for the IFFC is a carved out. This will not change the law in India, means in the domestic India, whatever the prevailing UGC or AICT norms are, that has to be complied with in the domestic India when you are setting up within India onshore. But when an IFFC is concerned, this carve out, which is already placed in the Parliament for this application of UGC and AICT, that will ensure that at least for the carved out zone of IFFC, there is only the IFFC Act and the regulations which will be given.
So that means it's right to understand we are in India, still outside India, for the purpose of regulations.
That's right. That's right.
Right, sir. Stephen, if there's not any question, I just want to put one question to Atul, because I understand very recently he had an opportunity to travel to the gift city and he had his share of live experience. So Atul, maybe I think if you can just tell your experience while you were traveling to Gandhinagar, you had an opportunity to visit gift city and meet the people across. So what is your take on it? Because it is always good to hear from the person who has been there live on the ground. Of course, with all due respect to Dipesh Ji and Sandip Ji, that they are always there on the ground. So anything that you want to like share with the audience out here?
Yeah, so I recently visited, you rightly said, I visited the gift city, and to my surprise that the amount of development which has happened over the last 3-4 years, and what I was able to also see the number of companies or enterprises, especially the foreign enterprises who have set up their businesses in India, including the international exchange offices which are operating over there. What I was also able to see the excellent infrastructure which has been created, as it is rightly named, it's the first smart city of India. So the infrastructure with respect to the subsidized electricity available, the air conditioning system for the entire city which is centralized, the waste management system which is centralized. So these are like things which are new as far as the smart city is concerned, and the infrastructure is par excellence as compared to the other cities in India are. So definitely it gives you that international flavor and that international experience. The entire arena which has been developed with respect to the infrastructure, the club facilities, the entertainment and sports facilities, which are far ahead, of what we normally see in India. So and I was also was taken for a round through the entire city, where we could see the new residential accommodations which were coming up by the international developers. So builders who have come from outside India to develop residential apartments or commercial buildings for businesses. So the prospects are very bright, and we see a lot of footfall in the coming years to see with respect to the gift city. Yeah, so there is a huge opportunity for the universities, because the proximity of the gift city is very appropriate. There is the metro connection is already under construction, which I could see, and what I was made to understand that in another 6 to 8 months the first train will start running. So that gives it connectivity to all the major cities as well. So again, you don't have to be worried about the connectivity or the transportation mode. So a metro rail will already be there while you are in the process of establishing your facility in India. So yeah, so I think it was an excellent experience, and it was really nice to meet the people around, and especially Mr. Sandip Shah and Mr. Dipesh Shah.
Thank you so much. So I think, Stephen, if there are no more further questions, so maybe you can do the closing remarks. And thank you to all the panelists for being a part of this webinar.
Thank you, Saurav. Thanks, Saurav, Dipesh, Sandip, and Atul. There's obviously been a lot of interest from Australian universities looking to operate in India, and we really appreciate you for taking the time to provide insights into the IFSC and Gift City. We're sure that there's going to be a lot of activity in this space over the coming 12 months. We'd like to hear from many of the attendees today. If you have any questions or are interested in establishing operations in India, please speak to your usual SW advisor, or please send through your inquiries to one of our speakers on the screen. Don't forget, we'll send out the slides after the session, and the video is available upon request if someone in your university would like a copy of the slides. We'd also value feedback on the session, so please complete our feedback survey, which will pop up on your screen at the conclusion of the webinar. We look forward to providing you further updates in due course. Thank you for joining us. Be well, stay healthy, and see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.